Hi everybody. So my name is Charlie and I'm from Keystrokes and Close Doors, and I'm going to be talking to Callista. Look, got it. Hi, how you doing?
Hi everybody.
I hope that everyone's tuning in and having a good time, and I think we're gonna have a really great time. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself so we can get to know you and feel like excited about your book.
Yeah, sure. So I never ever thought that I would write anything. I, for many years, blogged professionally, but of course that was only nonfiction. So while I was very familiar with the writing process, it was not in any way creative. And then I was on a plane, and I'll talk about this later, but I had this idea, and all of a sudden it was off to the races, and I was writing, and so it was a really fast, steep learning curve. I am a librarian, but I'm a scientific and technical librarian. I live in Virginia, near Washington, D.C., in a little house that was built in the 1950s and always seems to be springing leaks in the roof. And I garden. I mean, I have so many other interests. I'm in a wildlife conservation group as well. So I thought I had a pretty full schedule, but then I started writing, and it's just one more, probably my favorite of my hobbies, I have to say.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that I've faked it out.
That's great. I really understand what it's like to have. And my mom is 100 years old, like literally. It's always.
It's unfortunate, but actually your volume is just coming in and out, and I'm wondering, since we went live, if there's like an audio quality.
Yeah, I do that. And let me try a headphone.
Oh, okay.
It was perfect when we started.
Yeah, it was, and now it sounds great.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right,
okay.
Great.
I'm sorry that you have to wear headphones now.
It's okay.
You still look fabulous. So.
Oh, thank you. So do you. So did you hear what I said before at all?
No, unfortunately I didn't.
Oh, okay. So I said that maybe you should wear headphones too. I was thinking maybe I can hear the feedback.
You can hear feedback. Okay,
Yeah.
Let me try this. Let me try this really quickly.
We have 2 viewers. Hello, everybody. Sorry for the technical issues. It was working perfectly fine before.
Now I hope that is this better, or?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Can everybody else hear me? I really hope you can. This would be really awkward if it goes silent. So I was saying that I totally feel your pain about having an old house, because my house is 100 years old, actually is. So I live on a farm, so it's just always something wrong with it. So I see what you mean. Yeah. So what kind of technical librarian are you?
I actually work at the U.S. Patent Office. So I go there, and patent examiners have to prove that inventions are new or not new, and so they do a lot of scientific and technical research. And so I actually, my title right now is trainer. Like, I'm actually a trainer teaching them how to do research. So.
Oh, great! That's fantastic. Awesome.
I really love it. Cool. It's a great job.
Yeah, I can imagine it'll be very, very interesting. And I know intellectual property can be very convoluted and difficult, but it's very interesting.
Yes, it can. It is. It stays interesting for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine there's always something new coming up about it. So I was just wondering, you said that you recently had the idea, but did you have an inkling that you wanted to be a writer, or how did that come up? Is it something that you've sort of done always, or not really?
No, I never have done creative writing. I guess the only thing that I can say I did always do is in emails, I try to be very focused and a very good storyteller. I really like to write funny emails, and actually my book is also on the lighthearted side, and there's a lot of funny parts to it. And so, in fact, when I was studying, I studied in China when I was in college for 6 months, and I wrote emails home every week, sometimes every day, about my experiences.
That's
And it
great.
was so funny, apparently, that my grandmother, who was getting emails, started forwarding them to all of her friends
Oh, seriously?
and saying, you have to read this. And she still tells the story about one of her friends called and said, are you going to hear from Kristen? You know, like, when,
Yeah.
you know, so they were very complimentary about my writing style. And
Yeah.
I had personal friends too who wrote me and said, I really think that you could, you know, you should write. And that was it, you know, like I came home and I had nothing to talk about anymore, and then, you know.
Yeah.
But my grandmother actually took all my emails and made them into a book. Like
Really?
Yeah, that was,
Wow.
I mean, a little, you know, like Kinko's, you know, it wasn't a bound book. It was like a little
Yeah.
paper stapled in the
That's
middle.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
very sweet. Oh, that's great. Like, it's something definitely to look at later on in life. Like, oh, or look at all these emails, and that's how it got started. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that most authors, they've always written. So it's refreshing to see someone who has actually found this and realized that it's their passion. You know, it's something that came on later, not when they were young and they've always dabbled in it. But, you know, that's really, really, really great that you've published a book and you've only just found that this is your passion. That's really, really amazing.
Well, thank you. I'm pretty excited about it.
I know. Oh, your cover is amazing. It's
my
really,
cover.
really.
I feel so lucky. I will tell you, I'll give her a plug.
Yeah.
Fiona Jade is the person who made the cover. First name's Fiona and Jade is spelled Jayde.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just brilliant. Well, she has a lot of pre-made covers that you can go to your website, but she's actually not expensive at all to have her design you something custom. And the reason I had actually tried somebody else to work with somebody else and it didn't work out, and then I looked at her website, and the way she goes about it is she asks you so many questions. What's the mood of your book? Are there any important symbols in your book? What does the main character look like? You know, and they're broad questions and narrow questions to get an idea of the content. And she just really zeroed in on what my book was about. I mean, when you look at the cover, you know, it's Olivia, it's my main character holding up, obviously being worshipful, and then she's got a handful of fire. And flame is a really important, you know, symbol in the book, and so but it's so striking. Also, it's a work of art. So she did a great job.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a really, really amazing, and I think from the blurb that I've read, it really symbolizes your book very, very well, and especially giving people like a workup of how your character actually looks like. I think that's really, really great.
Yeah, and it's not dark. You know, so many books are, you know, darker in tone and they have that dark black background. But her color scheme was this very light blue, and it is actually a lighter book. It's on the lighter side, so I think that comes across too when you look at the cover.
It's just gorgeous. It's seriously just gorgeous. Like, if I had a book cover, that would be something along the lines of what I'd want to, because it's just so whimsical and it's beautiful, and I think, it's amazing.
She did a great job.
I think she did. And so I find that you and we have a passion for ancient Rome, I think.
Yes.
Oh gosh, I love it. I love it, love it, love it. I'd studied it for years, and I even went to Rome. I was lucky enough to go to Rome and tour Italy straight after high school, and I could just stay in the city of Rome just itself for like a month, exploring everything, and it's just, oh my gosh, so good. Have you ever been?
I have been to Rome. Also, when I was in high school, I took Latin for 4 years.
Wow.
And actually, my book does have quotes from Latin poetry in it. And the reason being that, you know, there are prayers to various gods, and I thought it would be really fun to find actual Roman poetry referencing that god. They're not actually prayers, but I've taken them out of, you know, Catullus and Ovid and Virgil. And so I was really, really into Latin, and, you know, did the AP exams, and it's just incredible when you can start to read Latin and understand it as though, you know, it's a language that you speak. It's a really beautiful language in a way. Yeah. But also the poetry is amazing. You know,
absolutely.
Like you read Ovid and you never forget it, you know. Yeah. So with ancient Rome, it was really more of the the Latin side that I studied, I did a little bits of the study of culture and ancient life and day-to-day life. But where I sort of went with it in my book is that I knew when I sat down to write, I knew exactly what I was going to write. I knew my plot. I wanted to get it down all right away. And I was thinking to myself, you know, you're not getting every detail of Roman life correct. And that's why the setting of my book, it's fantasy, you know, it's a YA fantasy. And so I didn't even call it Rome. I mean, the country name is Parcae, Parcae, which actually is the Fates, you know, that's the name of the three Fates or whatever, the Parcae. But because I did not want people to read it, especially younger people, and think, oh, they had, you know, shopping bags in ancient Rome. I used a lot of anachronisms because I purposely turned it into a fantasy world where I could do whatever I want. You know? So I took what I liked. I took the elements of culture. I took all of the religion in the book is as correct as I could make it. All of the Roman mythology is correct, and the festivals I talk about, and even the dates and everything. But I should make it really clear up front. And I was actually thinking about putting something in the beginning of the book, like, look, this is not meant to be 100% historically accurate, you know, just so there's no confusion, because there has been at least one reviewer who's been like, you know, you made some mistakes here. And it's really hard to, you know, you can't say anything to a reviewer, like they're entitled to what their opinion, but I really want to say, like, no, I wasn't going for accuracy. I feel so silly now because it looks like I just don't know anything about ancient life.
If you don't categorize your book as a historical fiction, then I think you go in reading the book knowing that liberties have been taken, you know. So I think people just got to pay attention to that, because I think it's quite obvious that, you know, it's going to be fanciful. It's going to, you know, go on the side a little bit of what people, and I think, you know, that's what people do in writing. You find bits and pieces of cultures and information that you like, and then you transform it into a book. That's, you know, I think everyone really understands that. And it's not a historical fiction, so don't worry. I don't think you need to worry about that at all.
Good. That's good. Yeah, thank you. But, I mean, you're right. Even, you know, like even a book like The Hunger Games has references to, you know,
absolutely,
Roman culture. So,
there was tons.
Yeah.
Especially in the names of the characters, and, you know, the whole fact that it was, you know, within like the dome setting and everyone had to fight each other. That was very gladiatorial. So there was definitely a lot about that, for sure. And so I just want to talk to you about how you write and you work at the same time. You know, there's a lot of things that, you know, can interfere with writing, and a lot of people struggle with, you know, writing and working and living life. And so do you have any tips about that? Because, you know, I'm sure a lot of people would like to know what you do to actually get your book published when you don't really have that much time.
Yeah. It was all about being very aggressive in making time. And I have my husband to thank for being 100% supportive. And, you know, I didn't want to take time away from him. You know, when I'm not working, you know, it's one of the things that's really important to spend time with him. But if he would schedule something like, oh, we're going to, you know, go take a day trip out to, you know, Manassas, which is a town near us. We'll spend a couple hours in a coffee shop, and you can bring your laptop and work on your novel, and I'll read or whatever. So he would make time even during the day so I could have that. And the only other thing I would say is, for me personally, TV is my downfall. Like, if there's a show I want to watch on, that's my downfall. So it's good to plan writing times for when he's going to watch something I don't care about. Well, I shouldn't say don't care about, but when he's going to watch basketball, for example, I should love it. I try to love it. He loves it so much, but that's the you know, that's the time that I can sneak away and start writing. And you have to train yourself to really value it. Ooh, I have time to write, because once you can grasp that, then it's, you know, you just start going. And you have to push. You don't quite feel like it. Just pull up a document, you know, and start going. So
Yeah. And how do you get over writer's block? So say like, you've gotten that time and your husband's going to watch a match or whatever for I don't even know how long it goes for. Obviously I'm really into sports. So you've got a limited amount of time and then you're sitting there and you're about to write, you're picking up where you left off and then nothing comes. How do you get over that?
I don't ever have writer's block, actually.
Oh my gosh.
I write a lot of stuff that I don't use. I sit down and write and then realize it's not quite doing the things I want it to do. So I'll have to go back and outline what are the goals that I'm working towards. But I can just take that time and enjoy like little riffing on the characters and thinking about what they would say and what if the story took this turn. And then when I realize I'm not inspired as far as the larger story arc goes and I've gotten it all wrong and it's never going to work, and I just take that in and put it into a document and, and say like for fun, and just save it. I mean, I love that we're in the digital age and we have version control and we could just throw things away, and I don't hesitate to throw things away anymore. But,
okay, great.
I'm always motivated to write something.
That's great. Like I do suffer from writer's block sometimes, which is, I think you're so lucky not to actually experience that kind of, you think and you're like, oh, okay, so what can happen next? Like I've had that like with dialogue sometimes. You're like, oh, what exactly would this person say? Like, is this typical for, what's happening, especially if you're not living what's happening and you're being in a fantasy world. And it's like, is this a typical reaction that a person would have? Like, is it like, are they being over dramatic or under dramatic? It's just, those kinds of things can happen.
And I think one of the strengths of my writing that I see over and over in reviews, I know you shouldn't read your reviews, but I have done. And if there's one thing that people say, it's that it's good. I have good character development. And the truth is that I really feel like that probably is true because the characters feel so real to me, like people that if I sit down to write for them, the dialogue always comes really easily to me and the reactions come easily to me because I feel like I know them inside and out. And again, it's not to brag. I mean, everybody has their, things that they do well and then things that they struggle with. And there are a lot of things that I struggle with, but the characters feel so real that really helps me.
That's great. And do you plot? Because from what I was saying, like, what you were talking before, I'm like, do you actually plot everything in detail or do you just see where it goes?
It's really important to plot with the things I do because I write well and I write with a purpose when I've got a point, when I'm trying to write a story arc that has an underlying point to it. In the first book, in Goddess, I am writing a sequel now actually, but in Goddess, I was trying to write the story of a girl who becomes disillusioned with the way society is, realizes she has more in her, and I knew the goal she was working towards. I won't spoil the ending, but everything she did, every scene progressed her knowledge of herself and her willingness to try new things. And so that was the fact that the story always had to go that one way. Sometimes you have to cut the fluff. Like sometimes I started writing an interesting vignette and I'm like, this is going nowhere towards my goal and the goal of the plot. And so it's hard. It's been much harder with the second one. The first one, I just sat down and I wrote it. It was like I had this idea. One day I knew exactly what this story was going to be. And I added things, I added episodes into it, but it all just pretty much came out. But with the second one, I'm still making decisions about where everybody's going to end up. And the theme, what's the theme? You have to, you have to have a theme and you have to have character growth. And anyway, I don't just blabbering on, but No,
I think like all that is really, really important. And I think like you actually spending time doing that will actually make the book much, much better. Like, I don't know like sometimes you read books and you think maybe that person didn't really think this out properly. But, I can tell that you're really thinking about it. And I know that will translate when you write it down. So I wouldn't worry about, spending a lot of time on that kind of thing because it's important.
I think it's really important. And there's nothing I like more when I'm watching movie or reading a book and the story reveals something about the character, that then they have to confront an obstacle and deal with that thing. I'm trying to think, but the story is illustrating a concept. That it's an arc from the beginning to end. And I'm trying to think of a good example.
Hunger Games.
Yeah, Hunger Games. Yeah, it is, and she has to get over her personal hang-ups, and the story is about her moving forward and doing that, and the challenges put in front of her.
Yeah, I find that there's like a very clear message in it as well, that book, because it's very much against, the capital and what the capital stands for, and that's, very ostentatious lifestyles and, cosmetic surgery and just vanity and things like that. So I noticed those kinds of themes in that book as well. So yeah.
That was well thought out, and she's a contrast to that, and and she grows in empathy too. I remember at one point in time, she's in the chair and they're fixing her hair and talking about how they wore feathers at their birthday party, and it was one of them had a feather themed birthday party. It was a disaster, and she thinks in the chair, because she's become friends and cares about these people. She's like, well, if I'd grown up in the capital, maybe that's what I would, be thinking about too. And then there was so much depth in her realizing that, it's not just us and them. It's a complicated situation,
That's very true. And Callista Hunter, your pen name, that is a very, very cool name. Where'd you get that from?
We had to brainstorm so long to get that name, but there's a reference to a nymph in my book, a nymph in Roman mythology. The name Callisto, right, was the nymph's name.
Yep.
And I was happening to look her up, and I saw that the root of the name means beautiful, and I actually think it's a really pretty name. When I was throwing things against the wall, it was just one of the things that went in the mix, and I thought it was so nice that it had a tie into the book. And then Hunter just sounded good. I mean, we tried so many different names, and Hunter just had a nice sound to it. But also Diana, the goddess Diana, figures very prominently in the story, and she's a hunter. And so I was like, oh, wow, it's kind of cute, kind of matches. And that's how that worked. My mom helped me so much. I mean, we were on GChat, like, putting together all of these names, and, it took hours. It really did. It was so hard. Coming up with a pen name is so much harder than I ever thought.
Probably harder than writing the whole entire book.
It was, actually, I had this thought. I was like, I'm spending more time on this than I have on, I don't know, certain parts that just came very easily to me. This feels like an uphill battle, though. So
yeah, I couldn't imagine if I don't know if I would get a pen name. Like, I just have no idea what on earth I'd call myself. I'd have no idea at all.
That's where I started too. And I spent actually a lot of time reading these lists of baby names and trying to think about names, characters in books that I love. What are the names there? I love the Anne of Green Gables books and Gilbert Blythe. I always thought Blythe was a cute last name. It means happy, and so I tried Callista Blythe for a while. It didn't have the same name. Yeah. I
love the name Callista. I love it. I just want to name a character that now. So
you're welcome to. And there is a Callista Hunter. There's a person. After I chose that pen name, I realized that like that Facebook page is taken. That's okay. People can have the same name, but once I realized that, I was like, oh no, now she's going to see this woman popping up in all her search results and go, who's this?
I know.
It's just all my name.
I think that's really good. And why did you choose a pen name? Because I think people are sort of moving away from that now, whereas it was very, very popular about 10, 15 years ago. But, I find that it's sort of coming back up again.
I honestly, it was really, really scary for me to publish my book. Doing it for fun, it's like, oh, it's just a cute little hobby. And I did. I didn't think I would publish it, or I thought, if I did publish it, I'd throw it up on Amazon and give it away for free. And if one person downloaded it, that would be cool. But as people give you good feedback and you get more and more enticed and, charmed by the idea of actually putting it out there into the world, it's exciting, but it's also extremely scary. And there are people in my life who I would prefer not to know that I wrote a YA fantasy novel. Certainly everybody I work with, you know, a patent office is full of engineers who, you know, like, I'm not saying nobody would respect me anymore, but I might lose some respect with some people who would think, oh my God. And, you know, I don't have an MFA. I'm not a career writer. You know, blogging doesn't totally count. And I've assumed that people's knee-jerk reaction will be, oh, it's probably really bad. You know, like an amateur writer. I just am afraid of that. And so I want to start fresh as a person that, you know, is a persona separate from my professional life and how some people may know me. You know, I don't want to merge the two. I'm not ready to merge the two. Maybe I'm just not mature enough in my writing to be able to merge that persona. Yeah.
I never really thought about it that way. I think that's a really interesting view, like, to keep it separate for, you know, the various reasons you said. Like, I think everyone these days is trying to, you know, they think everyone will know it's me anyway. So they kind of just forego that. And I think, you know, that it does have merit to have a pen name as well. I think that's something definitely every writer should consider, I think, especially if, you know, they live a very divided life, a very professional life. You know, I'm studying a law degree, and I don't know how writing fantasy would be taken, you know, in a legal kind of field.
I wonder too, if it gives some people confidence to write what's really in their mind and their imagination without having to slap their own name on it. Because, and this is so silly, I mean, there are some love scenes, you know, some smoochy, kissy scenes in my book. It's YA fantasy, there's romance, of course. And when I was writing them, I was like, oh my God, are people going to read this? People I know going to read this and think, is that what Callista thinks is sexy? You know, like, is that really her ultimate fantasy? And it's like, no, you know.
Well, it's not 50 Shades.
It's just a story, you know. So if it's Callista's name on it, maybe it's not quite as out and proud as, you know, my name on it.
That's true. Like, in writing my book, I'm writing some scenes, and I'm like, I really hope my mother doesn't read this or something like that. You know, I just feel very conscious of people who will read it, and it's like, I really just don't read it until it's published, because I don't know what you'll think about all this. Like, I don't know, it's not just, you know, the sexy scenes, it's like the darkness as well that, you know, you write about. It's like, oh my gosh, she must be a psycho or something.
Yeah, this came out of your imagination, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So, I think that definitely has merit to think about. I will definitely be thinking about it.
Are you sharing your work with your friends and family as you go along?
Not the people in my life, really. Like I talk about it, the fact that I am writing a book, but what it's really about, not really. I think, I don't know, I don't know, I'm a bit nervous about it, to be honest. I think like that I don't know if they'd really, because nobody I know is into writing, and I don't think they really understand the process that it is and the passion that goes along with it. And I think it's just quite difficult to talk to people about it. But I do have a writers group, and I do share stuff with them, and it's actually online, so I haven't really met them, but I think some of them are watching. Hello, guys. And I find that talking to them about it and getting their feedback is really, really great, and it's giving me more confidence to talk about it in my actual real life here in Australia with people that I know. But so far, it's a bit like, oh yeah, I'm writing a book. Just
it's so scary. It's so scary, you know. It's so scary to put yourself out there. It really is.
Absolutely.
So I still have days where I was like, where I'm like, oh my God, you know. I still have days where I'm like, I can't believe I did this, and now everybody is reading, you know, what I put out in the world. But you have to have confidence, and you know, otherwise you're never going to achieve anything, I guess.
Exactly.
So, but it's hard. It's hard. It is.
And how many people in your life know that you've written this book?
I would say about half. I mean, I would say all my girlfriends know. And the people who I don't think will ridicule me,
Yeah.
or secretly think, oh my God, you know, it's probably terrible. The people who I know are going to be in my cheerleading section, I didn't hesitate to tell them, and
Yeah.
like, you know, so
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's good when you know that, like, you know, people will be there to support you. So how about we do not delay and talk about your book so everyone knows what it's about. So do you want to just give us a little rundown of what it's about?
yes. So my book is about, so the Vestal Virgins, as you know, was a religious order in ancient Rome.
Yep.
The idea being that, you know, they're virgins and they tend to be everlasting hearth. Well, of course, in the real world, they just kept the fire going. In
Yep.
my book, though, I posit that they've been told, that everybody in their nation, the far side, has been told that this flame is everlasting. It burns with no fuel or human intervention. It is the embodiment of our goddess Vesta, right?
Yeah.
So my main character, Olivia, is a Vestal virgin. She works in the temple. And, you know, she's a normal life. She's a 16-year-old girl. She has to be a virgin forever, but that doesn't mean she doesn't have a little crush, you know, on one of the guys that looks, you know, for one of the priests, you know, and, you know, so she's always dealing with other people who work in the religious establishment, right? So she has a crush on this guy. And she has a job to do. She has a mundane job to do. She has to toast some wheat for the ritual the next day. She puts it in the oven. She leaves the temple and then she realizes, oh my gosh, it's still in the oven. She runs back to the temple and she knows they will have closed it for a ritual that women cannot see. And she doesn't care. You know, it's death to see this ritual, but she's like, I cannot burn this wheat. You know, I'm going to be in so much trouble. So she runs through this door. Her crush is in the way. She shoves him aside, right? He's supposed to be making sure no women come in. So this is how he gets sort of inextricably tied to her, is because he's made this mistake and let her get in. Now he feels responsible for what happens to her. And the love story does develop, but I made a point to be like, it's not insta-love, you know, their lives get entangled. I mean, she has a crush on him, but it's not like he's mooning over this perfect woman. Anyway, I'm getting off track. So she discovers that the flame is not everlasting. She sees somebody putting oil in a basin below it, and she sees that it's not real. So her world is shattered. I mean, she believed that she was going to worship this goddess for the rest of her life. She comes to discover in stages that not only is the goddess not real, the reason that this goddess was created out of whole cloth by the religious establishment is to keep women in the home. So, and this parallels like an idea in the feminine mystique which really happened, where as men went off to World War II, women came out of their family spheres. They had to do jobs that men were doing. When the men came back, it became all about the media advertising that a woman's place is in the home. They were trying to get the women out, you know, to believe that the ultimate place for them was raising children in the home, and that's what she discovers. And so she realizes that her world has been calibrated to keep her, you know, quiet,
pure, and you know, the pretty little 16-year-old girl she is, obviously. Yeah.
And once she realizes that, she doesn't want it, it feels hollow to her, as it would have done to him. So she figures out that the other gods are real. And this is something that everybody accepts and is true in the book. It's a fantasy book where the other, you know, gods are real. What she figures out is she can invoke these gods to do things for her in the real world. So she has a guide, Cassius, one of the academy boys. There, you know, these academies around, right? He teaches her that she can invoke the gods. She discovers she has two best friends, Lucia and Marta, who are also Vestal virgins. Long story short, they discover that although they all can invoke the gods, they grow little plants. They invoke Flora to grow flowers and Pomona to grow fruit. Her friend Lucia can grow a 30-foot fig tree in a day, where she can barely grow one little flower. So there's no explanation for why Lucia has so much power and so much more ability to invoke the gods. But that turns out to be the key plot point, because war comes to their nation, and only Lucia has, you know, the key. She figures out the way to fight the bad guys, and it's something that only women can do. So men cannot do it. And what it is invoking the goddess Diana, because Diana is the virgin goddess, right? She hates men, but she's also an archer. And so what Lucia does is she's able to launch these iron spheres filled with gunpowder. Okay, talk about historical inaccuracy.
Yeah.
I've introduced gunpowder into the mix. I was like, what if there was gunpowder in ancient Rome?
Yeah.
The ancient Romans have no idea what it is.
What
what would they do with it?
Oh,
And
wow.
so they essentially invent cannonballs, but only Diana can help them launch, you know.
Yeah.
Long story short, what they find out, the arc, is that, you know, they were worshiping an external goddess, Vesta. By the end of the book, they realize that the divinity is in themselves. See, the goddess is a metaphor, you know, like
Absolutely.
That's the title, goddess, which is a really really generic name for a book. It's not a marketing coup. I mean, but that's the most important concept. That's the theme of the book, is the theme of, you know, woman power. So
that's really good. Like, I'm smiling throughout this whole entire book because it just seems like a book that's like right up my alley. I really, really want to read it because, one, I love the historical aspect and the place that you've set it. It sounds amazing. And then just the meaning behind it. And I think, you know, to empower women is a really, really good thing, you know, being not only women ourselves, but just in general, it's a really good thing. And I think, you know, for young women, young girls, you know, your demographic, I think that's something really, really meaningful for them to read. Absolutely.
I've really gotten up on a pedestal. Like, the older I get, the more I realize how much being a woman has shaped how people have treated me and seen me and where I've gone with my life because of that. And the way I, you know, my insecurities are all because of, you know, society, you know. And I read this book, I read the book Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, and that really just did it for me. It opened my eyes that everything I thought might be true is true. You know, people are really putting you in a box and having different expectations on you based on your gender. And I just got really ornery, and I really wanted to tell that story. When I was sitting on a plane thinking about, you know, how writers plot their books, and I had just read The Feminine Mystique, and I thought it was such BS, you know, how women got pushed back into the home. And then I thought, well, would I do future or past? And I thought, oh, history would be so cool to do something with ancient Rome. And then I remembered the Vestal Virgins and this icky idea of virginity and purity, and it just all sort of came together to be like this concept for me. And that's when I got really excited about it. So.
I think, like, I know, thinking back when I was, not that I'm that far off a teenager, but, you know, when I was younger, teenager in high school, there's so much pressure and there's so much expectation of what people think about you and what you should be. And I think reading books like this is really good. And I know that there's a lot of YA that's very racy, you know, for instance, for that generation, for that age group. And I think having more books that actually teach them good values and, you know, to be empowered within themselves, I think is something that really is really needed, especially in YA.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, you know, I just did my best with the idea, but that was important to me. And also, I will just say as an aside that I made a point to, you know, try to go the positive body image route of saying that my main character is actually curvy, you know, so I don't describe her as, you know, no 90-pound Katniss. You know, I know she had to be small for a reason, but I feel like every book that I read is always describing their young teen heroine as just this beautiful, so beautiful she can't even help herself. That's nobody's experience, you know. Everybody's in love with her from the get-go. No, that's nobody's experience. So I wanted to write that story, you know, and have the love story progress based on who the people are and not insta love, you know.
Yeah, I think that's something really good too. Like, I personally like characters who are in the beginning unlikable, you know, because I just find that most people, you know, people change, and just in most books everyone's like, yeah, as you said, she's so amazing. So, you know, seeing that development.
I have to say that the guy, the male lead, you know, in the love story, in my first draft, you know, I got a lot of feedback from great critique partners who helped me so much. And, you know, one of the people that I got critiqued by, she said, the guy is so unlikable and I just can't do it. And I had to go back and soften him up. But that's what I was going for. I didn't want him to be the typical sexy hunk from the beginning that everybody has dots over. He actually, so I tried really hard with my characterizations to give everybody one recognizable personality trait. You know, I didn't want them to be flat, you know, but everybody has to have one, you know, your characters as you start, they have to have some kind of differentiator. And that guy, the reason that he's attractive to her is not because he's super sexy or, you know, outgoing or whatever. He's actually very quiet and standoffish and sometimes not very nice, but he is very competent. What he cares about is doing his job really, really well, being on top of everything. And he's actually, you know, one of the main reasons that the country wins the war is because he takes it upon himself to realize that, oh, if women helped us, you know, we could win the war. Yeah. He's so competent and so good and so smart, and that's what she finds attractive about him. And so he is controlling because he has to be on top of everything, but I did not want to go the Edward Cullen route. I did not want to make him, you know, I love you so much that you have to do only exactly what I say. He does try to control her, but it's because he has to, you know, be on top of everything, and he doesn't want to see her get hurt, not because he's like in some kind of obsessive love with her.
Yeah. And so what kind of research did you actually do? Like, I can imagine, like, you know, where did you find your sources and what did you actually do to make your world so realistic in that way and be quite seamless? Like, you must have done a lot of research in various different things, not just, you know, the historical aspect, but what else did you do?
I did, I read Bulfinch's Mythology, first of all, which is a book of Roman and Greek mythology that was actually really popular. Everybody had a copy back in like the early 1900s. Now it's not really studied anymore, but I just boned up on all of my mythology. And then if I had a question, a lot of questions arose as I was writing. Yep. So the first thing I would do, of course, is always turn to Wikipedia just to get a little primer. And then with ancient Rome stuff, what I found was that Google Books, you know, they've digitized a lot of very old stuff that, of course, still has good information about ancient Rome, even if it was written in, you know, 1930 or whatever. Ancient Rome's long done, you know, so it's still accurate information. So I went and read free sources out of copyright on Google Books to learn about the Roman religion and how it was set up with the college of priests and pontiffs and the, you know, flamen, you know, is the name of their priests. So,
okay, very, very cool. And how did you develop your characters? Because I know you said that characterization is really important to you, and it came quite naturally because you just knew your characters so well. Like, is there any tricks or anything that you specially did to invoke such reality and 3-dimension to your characters?
I wish I had something interesting and intelligent to say about that, but I guess the only thing I will say is that it was easy as I was writing in the first person. I was writing my main character. She's very relatable to me. I went through a lot of the same disillusionment she did, and so I was really writing with a lot of my voice as her voice. So that's a cheat. I mean, I was writing me. But all of the other characters, they have aspects of my personality. And for example, she has a best friend, Marta, my main character, Olivia, has a best friend, Marta, who is a perfectionist, and she's a pessimist, and she's always, you know, sarcastic and irritable. And everybody has that side of them, you know, for sure. But I definitely get very anxious about things, and I'm definitely a pessimist. And then Gaius, you know, the main love interest, he's the control freak, and it's just another aspect of my personality. And then Lucia is like the girly girl who loves shopping and is happy-go-lucky. And for a long time, I thought that the fifth character is a boy named Cassius, and he's always very, very happy, always smiling, always upbeat. And that's not really totally carefree. He is totally carefree, and I'm not totally carefree. But what I finally realized is he's the librarian. He's the character that cares about the truth coming out. He doesn't want to withhold information from anybody, and that's a value that I have that he just got, you know, he's imbued with because of his purpose in the story, but also because I can relate to that. That came naturally to me to write that. And somebody told me that everyone's first novel is an autobiography. And when I When I thought of that and looked back on my novel, I was like, oh man, it's all me, you know. And I just really hope that people don't read the book and go like, oh my God, that's so her, you know.
Yeah, I can totally agree with you, but you know, I definitely think characters are a part of you, and I find that I've done an analysis of my own characters, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the lighter side, this is the grey, and maybe this is the dark. They're all a part of me, and I find that, yeah, you definitely need to know yourself quite well in order to do great characterization as well, and it can get a bit of, yeah, dark.
We're really working out our issues on the page, aren't we?
I really think that, I think it is for sure. Like, I definitely have noticed, you know, especially even like in notions of love as well. You know, there's different types of love within just the one kind of overarching thing. Like, there's the really light and happy, and then there's the more deep, meaningful, and then there's like, you know, the times where it can get a bit, you know, but it's all a part of the same thing. And I think, yeah, novels really showcase who a writer is, and I think that's really, really good.
And scary, but
yeah.
good.
Yeah, and definitely scary. So, who do you think will get the most out of your book? So, like, what kind of readership are you aiming for?
I have to say that I wrote the book with women in mind. It's only because I didn't want men to start reading it and roll their eyes and go like, "Oh, girl power! I see where this is going." You know, some men would. But I have been really amazed at how many men have actually read the book. Adult men, you know, not teen girls, and have actually said, "Oh, I liked it, and I enjoyed it, and I liked X, Y, and Z about it." It was really heartening. But I wrote with young girls in mind. I wrote the kind of book that I would have loved and read over and over again, or think I would have, when I was like 13, 14, 15, you know, like things are simple. I like books and movies and entertainment that are simple, that are lighthearted, that are an escape. And you know, a lot of adults probably prefer literary fiction. You know, they're adults, they have ability to process heavier emotions. But for me, if I read, I just want it to be an escape. And so I was just thinking, I really wrote for people who want to be amused and happy at the end and not have to work too hard. You know, it's a YA. The voice is simple. I didn't want the voice to get in between the reader and the story. You know, not that I would be good at it anyway, but I didn't try too hard to use this figurative language or beautiful metaphors or anything like that. I write very straightforward. The voice of a 16-year-old girl who, you know, has not taken any MFA courses or anything.
Yeah, so. That's really good. Like, I think more people are realizing that YA just isn't just for teenagers. Like, a lot of adults read YA. Like, I love YA. I think it's really great. Yeah, so I think that's really good that, like, you know, what you're doing in general just is really good because you're giving a good message and, you know, you're writing what you want to do. So, you know, and what you read. So I think that's really, really good.
I mean, there were all these articles that came out very recently that, oh, the literary world exploded over, you know, people came out and said, it's sad for grown-ups to read YA. Did you read those articles that came out?
Yeah, oh, I did.
And I read it and I was so mad. I was like, you don't know me. You don't know anything about me or my life or the kind of emotions that I deal with on a daily basis. If I want to enjoy myself and relax, and this is the art that I go to, it's none of your business. And it says nothing about my level of maturity. It's just for fun. You know, it's just for fun. It's an escape. This is all art. It's all an escape.
And what does that say about, you know, writers, adults who write YA? You know, are they saying that, you know, they don't have the mental capacity? Yeah, it's not. It's so silly. Like, you know, it's a very, very bad argument, and, you know, I think that there has been definitely strong backlash towards that, and, you know, Yeah, you got to stand up for YA. YA is awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. It's given me so many hours of just unblemished, just enjoyment,
Exactly. YA is the genre that, gets people reading, especially at that critical age when they're, teenagers and other things come up. And then it's the genre that keeps people reading as well because, it's not just, stuck in one aspect. Like a YA can be any genre. It's not just one. Like, you could have fantasy or romance, like, it's harder to do, a romantic book for younger people, but in the YA you can do it. There's no real rules for YA.
Yeah, and thank God for that.
Yeah, I know. It's the best. I think, yeah.
But the challenges, I think, as you were saying, the challenges are universal. Everybody remembers. It was a very stressful time for all of us, and it's easy to go back there in your emotions and relate. I think.
Exactly. And I love reading books that, you've read when you were younger and you go back and it's like you're meeting old friends again. And I think that's the best part about, finding a book that you like, and it doesn't really matter what genre it is at all.
Right.
So I think like I really want to talk to you about self-publishing because it's a very big thing that's happening at the moment, and I just feel like other authors need to share what they're doing in order to get their books self-published, and why they do it, and how they think that other writers should go about it, if that's the way that they want to go. If that's a really, really convoluted question, but yeah.
No, I know what you mean. I tried to get an agent. I didn't try hard. I sent out like a dozen queries, which in the world of trying to get an agent, I mean, people tell me this story all the time about how J.K. Rowling, got rejected over 100 times before an agent picked up Harry Potter. But honestly, rejection is hard. First of all, it takes forever to hear back from them. And secondly, if they do just send you a form letter, it's hard. It's hard. Artists are insecure. And then, after I got a couple of them, I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? I wrote this book for fun. I wrote this book and I did it to be happy, and this is making me really unhappy. And self-publishing is such a respected, there are such respected self-published authors these days that it's not inherently a bad word anymore. I did hire an editor. I wanted to make sure it's critical, it's crucial, and everybody says this, and it's 100% true. Hire an editor. Make sure that you're putting out a quality product. Get a nice cover. Spend the money. It did take some outlay of cash, and I didn't do it thinking, oh, I'm going to make all this money back. I did it because I was excited about the book, and I was just excited, loved the idea of sharing it and hearing what people had to say about it. And if you do it right and you learn about it beforehand, you can actually be a successful self-published author. I did not do it right. I just got the file and put it on Amazon and clicked publish with absolutely no launch plan, which is wrong. It's wrong. And I thought at the time I didn't care, but then it turns out that when nobody bought my book, I did care. So then I had to go back and learn how to talk to influencers. I got on social media, and it's all really, really hard uphill work to market your book. I would just recommend to all authors who may have a book coming out in the future to look up this guy. His name is Tim Grahl, and his last name is spelled Grahl. Tim Grahl. And he is a really, really smart guy who's launched a lot of books that have gotten on the New York Times bestseller list. Like he represented Michael Bunker, if you know who that is. He writes Amish science fiction. He wrote Pennsylvania, and it was incredibly popular. Yeah, it's just this really weird niche book, but it hit the New York Times bestseller list because of his tactics. And it's really not like flim flam snake oil. It's really good advice. He has a free 30-day email course that you can take, that you can sign up for. And I just found it so valuable.
I have heard that from a couple of other authors when I was talking to them about self-publishing, but they're like, I've signed up for his email course and blah, blah, blah. So what is that?
Oh, yeah, so you just get an email every day that says something useful. So I think the first one said, some of them are like little clickbaity. One of them was like, why your book launch will fail. You know, but you click on it and it's a lesson in there. It's, you know, he uses anecdotes to illustrate his points. And his very first point is that if you're one of the authors that gets on Twitter and Facebook and posts day after day, buy my book, 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 nobody's going to do it, first of all. Secondly, everybody will find you really annoying and unfriend you and not like you and be really irritated. And he talks about a car buying experience that he had where the guy was just totally unhelpful in helping him make a choice, but pressured him, you know, how can I get you into a car today? He's like, you know, the way he could have got me to buy a car was to help me make a decision. You know, being relentlessly helpful is the way to go. And how can you help readers decide whether or not they want to read your book? You make them, you put out quality content that makes them interested. Like your blog, you have so much advice and author interviews and just musings on the craft that people want to read that. They want to follow you and learn what you're all about. And then when you have a product, they like you and they want to buy it because you've helped them understand something about themselves or about the craft or whatever. So that's one of his big principles, basically.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's very cool. And so I was just thinking, like, your cover, you got an editor, and then you used Amazon. How was that as a platform?
It's been great. I like Amazon a lot. They allow you, and I do Kindle Select, and they do allow you to do the 5 free days every 90 days if you want, or you can do a Kindle countdown, which is a discount, and they try to promote you to a certain degree. Now they have algorithms and they decide how likely you are to be a success. So if you don't do well, you can find yourself really dropping fast. So that's the bad part about it. But you can strategize. As long as you know what they're up to and how they think about you, you can strategize. And I think they've been great. And one thing I really like about them is they give you instantaneous feedback as far as sales are concerned. So if I sold a book 5 minutes ago, I would see it, you know, on my sales report if I logged in and looked at my sales report. The bad thing about them, but this may be true of everybody, is that they don't give you enough analytics to understand where your traffic came from. So if I posted something on Facebook, I want to know how many hits my Amazon page got that day from people clicking on my Facebook link. I wouldn't know that by looking at Amazon. I would have to have used Bitly or something, you know, some service that would give me analytics.
I agree. I use Bitly as well, and Buffer, which is another one. They both, they're very good, especially with their analytics, and I think that's really important, which Amazon should really get on that if they don't have that.
Yeah, it's very annoying. I mean, every blog has that capability. It's, you know, to monitor your traffic. It's like a basic thing that everybody should be able to do. So I'm really bummed about it. They used to have a loophole that would allow you to put an image in your author bio, you know, like a little picture. And then you could do Google Analytics on that file. So every time it was loaded on the page, you could get analytics from where. Anyway, they closed that loophole, and I don't know why, because I'm really sad, you know.
That's terrible. That's how annoying. That's like basic stuff.
You would think they would want authors to have that information so they could make better decisions about what's working for them and what's not, and adjust their sales strategy. I mean, it would do nothing but benefit Amazon to give us that capability. So I don't know why they don't.
And what social media strategy do you have? I know this wasn't really one of my questions that I asked, but just for myself,
No, that's okay. I really pulled back off of social media because of Tim Grohl and because of, you know, the things he said. When I first started and I was totally clueless and I had no launch plan, I just went online and did what all the other authors were doing, which, you know, was promoting my book, you know, and that's not what works. And, you know, it may have worked to a certain extent. I mean, I certainly made sales, but, you know, it's not a long-term plan. So now I'm trying to focus on, because I don't have unlimited time because I work all day, you know, I'm trying to focus on just 1 or 2 venues and to do it really well. And what I'm trying to do is my blog and Pinterest. My blog's still not quite that interesting, but Pinterest, I'm trying to do an ancient Greek itinerary. So I'm hoping people will follow me because I'm talking about, you know, planning my perfect trip, or, you know, repinning mythology, you know, type stuff. And because that's the most interesting social network to me that I've gotten into so far.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm trying to make successful is my Pinterest, you know, and I know that's not the most popular one that people use, but as long as you have something, as long as you have something that adds value and content that people find valuable, then that's how you get followers, you know.
Yeah, like I found you on Twitter because I saw that you did an interview, and I was looking and I found your page and I was like, oh, this looks really, really interesting. And so I wanted to talk to you, but yeah, I found you over Twitter, which is, you know, I think is a good platform as well.
It is, and to say Twitter has been good to me, you know, but it's when I've been a little bit more either casual or there's interesting content, like you saw that I'd done an interview. At one time I was just like, hey, who wants a free copy of my book? You know, rather than buy my book. I was like, I'll give a free copy to anybody. Do you want it? Because I was trying to get reviews. And my friend Amanda Matua, who I believe you are going to interview, you know, I didn't know her from Adam, but she said, I'll take one. And then it turned out she really liked the book and she wrote me a review and she was really sweet. And just because she saw that tweet, you know, and why not tweet? I mean, they're gone in 30 seconds. I mean, everybody follows like 800 people. It's just like a fire hose.
Right? I know. You know? Like I'm personally finding it really hard to like, I don't know, engage on Twitter. Like I'm an Instagram person and I find that my engagement with people is so much better on Instagram, and I love everybody on Instagram. Like they're just so supportive and everyone just communicates, and I find like I don't know how to explain it, connection with them is so much stronger than the people with Twitter. Even though Twitter, I find, you know, there are a lot of clicks onto my blog from Twitter, but you know, I just don't feel like nobody really communicates as much on there.
It's not a connection. It's just tweeting links. Everybody's just tweeting links.
Everyone's tweeting stuff. And I just feel like, you know, on Instagram, everyone's actually communicating. So I think you should get on Instagram if you don't have it.
Maybe I will. I've never, you know, I have a personal non-Callista Hunter account and I've never really figured out how to make it work for me. I'm just not good. I mean, do you take pictures? Or are you finding images online that you're posting, or how do you generate your Instagram content?
Well, me personally, I try to make my own images. So I use a graphic design software called Canva. It's free and it's really, really easy to use. And I just find high resolution images and then I just put my own stuff on top of it, and that's generally what I do. So I try to make my own, which is time consuming, but I feel like it shows an originality in who you are and just what you're trying to do. But yeah, I put everything on there. I put like poems, I put, you know, book quotes, and I put writing quotes, and I do lots of different things. And then I also put pictures of my pretty books that I have on my shelf as well. So I don't know, it's everything.
Talking me into it. Now I've got to get an account so I can follow you.
Yeah, no, you should definitely get into it. It's really fun, and like everyone, you know, they should follow you. So, you know, to find out more about your book, which is good. And how about we do the reading, which, you know, we've got a really exciting reading that you're going to do, an excerpt of your book. So everyone, you can hear a page or so of the book and get excited about it. I'm excited about it. If you want.
I'm so glad. I had picked, this is the third excerpt I tried and I finally landed on it. It's short, it's only 2 minutes. I won't make you listen to me for too long, but it's, you know, it's not real heavy. It's lighthearted dialogue and it's supposed to be kind of funny. Yeah. And the only thing you would need to know, you remember that, you know, they're working with bombs, right? They're trying to launch bombs. That's what they're doing in this passage. And I've mentioned that Livia is curvy, so there's a mention of that in there, which otherwise might not make sense. And then finally, I should just mention that early on in the book, she makes, she uses a burn, right? She's trying to have witty banter with her friend, Marta, and she says, oh, they're, you know, too bad there's not a goddess of competence that you could worship or pray to, you know, to be competent. So that's her burn, right? So you need to know that in order to understand the jokes in here.
All right, so great. Okay. I'm excited.
Okay. So I'm going to move my Word document over the top of your face. Actually, I can move you over here just to make sure nothing weird goes on with the picture or something.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. After a while, Gaius comes to stand by us. His scrutiny makes me nervous. I send a couple of shots way off course, and then I fail to make my third bomb explode at all. It just plunks into the sea. You know, sighs Gaius, irritated past endurance, if you're going to commit blasphemy and endanger your life and the lives of your friends, you should at least be good at it. You step off her, Marta whips around. Let's see you try one, huh? Why don't you show us how it's done? Marta, I would think you'd show a little more respect to someone who saved your life, Gaius retorts. Oh, that's right, Marta says. Tell us again how your brilliant tactical thinking led you to run face first into a gigantic Salanthi bomb. Really great stuff. I hope they asked you to teach a class. Gaius just clenches his jaw and looks skyward. Oh, how I want them to continue. You do not get into a snide off with Marta. 9 times out of 10, she will stomp you into oblivion, and he deserves it. And speaking of deadly, life-threatening blasphemy, I believe it was you who let a tiny little woman get past you into the Vestal Temple, she continues. Excuse me, but are you calling her tiny? He points at me. Because if she ran full tilt into you, you'd be in a cast, I guarantee it. With those hips, she could have broken down the door herself. No offense, Olivia. None taken, I say. I'm snorting with laughter now. Oh gods, I am going to make them fight all the time. And speaking of stupid, he says, inching closer to her and dropping his voice, I am not the one who worshipped a fake goddess for the last 6 years. At least Mars is real. Oh yes, Mars is working out great for you, Marta exclaims with enthusiasm. He's so gratified by your devotion that he allowed your enemy to amass a 5-to-1 advantage and invent a deadly weapon. You know, too bad there's not a god of competence you can consult instead. Heh, I knew that was a good burn. Well, guess what, baby? There is one, Gaius says, and he prays to me. As he stomps off, Marta's mouth hangs open, her expression a mixture of shock and disgust. Did he just call me baby? She asks me, appalled. And by the way, Olivia, your burn sucks. That's and scene.
That was so cute. Like, I can totally see the different voices.
Oh yeah,
It was
I'm
really
no
good.
voice actor, but I tried to differentiate a little bit. But yeah,
That's
fun.
great.
Thank you.
I love that. It has such a strong, teenage voice.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that really YA needs. Like, how do you even say it? Like, you need to emulate a 16-year-old, and that was really good. I thought the dialogue was good, and I hope everyone there really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. And some people say that the dialogue is not realistic for the ancient world, but I will just say this: when people write in the ancient world, different worlds, whatever, and they try to use this very stilted language to make us feel like it was a long time ago or far away, I actually really don't like that, because I find it distracting, first of all, and secondly, you're already taking us back there and translating what they're saying into English. Translate it all the way. Translate it so that we can understand the full meaning of what they say, as though we were there. And that's why I write more modern dialogue. One of the reasons. So.
Yeah, and it's not like, even back then, like, if you go to Rome, there's a lot of phalluses on the wall. It's not like they were very, very proper in their, talking. They did have swear words, they did curse, and they weren't very, very proper. So I don't know why people always tries to make them be proper. When people are people, you're not gonna be very very stilted. So I think that's really good. And thank you so much for doing this interview. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it
too. Thank you. It's so wonderful to meet you online and see you and talk to you. Really appreciate you doing this. Thank you.
It's totally, it's my pleasure. I have really enjoyed it, and I've been looking forward to meeting you, because just talking online, I was like, I wonder, I've never seen you before, so I wonder how you look like. It's been a really great experience, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Shelley.
All right. Well, I'm going to stop the broadcast now. I don't even know how to do this, but
Okay.
thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.